Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Hale. I am one of the executives for the Office of Deaconess and Home Missioner, which is administered by United Women in Faith. Welcome to our Voices from the Field event. In this series, Voices from the Field is a series of virtual events that highlight United Women in Faith's international and national initiatives supported by mission giving, programs that significantly improve the lives of women, children, and youth around the world. The events feature international and national leaders sharing their work, daily challenges, hopes, and dreams in an interactive format. In this Voices from the Field, we will be hearing from 3 of our newest United Methodist Deaconess Home Missioners who were consecrated at General Conference this past spring. In the Methodist tradition, deaconesses have a rich history dating back to 1888, when the office of deaconess was first established in the Methodist Episcopal Church. Today, deaconesses and home missioners are lay people who work in a wide variety of vocational ministries of love, justice, and service in fields such as education, healthcare, advocacy, environmental justice, and more. Your mission giving dollars support the education and training that these deaconesses and home missioners receive, preparing and equipping them to do the work that God has called them to do. In today's event, we will be hearing from these 3 deaconess home missioners. We'll have a time to participate in a Q&A session where you are able to ask questions of these individuals. And then there will be an optional breakout room session at the end where you can go have a more one-on-one experience with one of the speakers. We'll begin our presentation today with Deaconess Kaitlyn with Deaconess Kaitlyn Frantz. Kaitlyn was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, and eventually made her way back to Dallas after college and seminary. She attended Centenary College of Louisiana, a small United Methodist college, and then Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary, also a United Methodist seminary in Chicago. After a long season of discernment, she found her calling as a hospital chaplain. Kaitlyn currently serves at Children's Health in Dallas, Texas, in the neonatal intensive care unit. She explores various avenues for engaging in professional, set-apart ministry, such as licensed local pastor, ordained as a deacon, and ultimately she discerned that she was called to a lifetime of lay chaplaincy, and thus became a deaconess. Chaplaincy has been a gift to her own spiritual growth, and Kaitlyn finds that it is the holiest ground she has been on. She is grateful to share about this ministry and the Voices from the Field opportunity tonight. And in her free time, she loves spending time with her wife and dog. They enjoy camping, seeing movies, and playing games. So I will hand it over to Deaconess Kaitlyn Frantz.
Thanks, Megan. And thank you all for letting me be a part of your evening. I had the pleasure of journeying toward consecration with Andy and Barbara, who you'll also be hearing from, and I am excited that you will get a chance to hear their stories as well. I have been a professional chaplain for 3 years. However, in many ways, probably just like you, I have kind of been a chaplain for my friends, my peers, and congregants for much of my life. When I was in high school, my friend's dad died suddenly and tragically. And all throughout that school year, I offered my friend empathic care. I processed questions of theodicy with her, of why would God not save him? I provided active listening and validation of feelings and all the things I write in my chart notes these days as a chaplain. It didn't matter the titles I carried or the education I had. God placed in my heart a care for the people in my life and equipped me with the presence and the words to care for them. I offer this story because it serves as my reminder and hopefully reminds you that we all have the capacity to care for, extend love, seek justice, and serve those in need. I now work at Children's Health in Dallas as the staff chaplain in our neonatal intensive care unit. I've also served in the emergency department, the trauma intensive care unit, and other various floors in the hospital. Some statistics about our hospital. Children's has a total of 490 beds and a 70 bed ER, serving about 200,000 patients every year. We are the only level 1 pediatric trauma center in North Texas, offering the highest level of care for children with traumatic injuries in this area. Where I work in the NICU, we have a level 4 NICU, meaning we provide the highest level of care for neonates. And Children's has the only NICU in the Dallas area that will take babies who have been discharged previously and gone home. And fun fact, Joint Commission, which is the regulatory body for hospitals, requires that religious needs be assessed. So we are seeing a growth in the acceptance from the healthcare community that spiritual care is something that is necessary in people's experiences in the hospital. The mission of Children's is to make life better for children. So within our spiritual care department, our vision, building off of that, is to create healing, inclusive communities of spiritual well-being for children and those who love them. I'll say that again because it's a mouthful. We create healing, inclusive communities of spiritual well-being for children and those who love them. And we do this by connecting to our sacred calling, building sacred trust, and inviting sacred encounters. So, what does the work of the chaplain look like in the midst of this context? Specialized in pediatric chaplaincy, our chaplains are trained to provide spiritual care not only to adults, but to our actual patients who range from 0 days old to 18 years old. So, at the center of our work is children. Rebecca Nye, the author of Children's Spirituality, What It Is and Why It Matters, spends time exploring children's spirituality and shares kind of one of the many different definitions of children's spirituality. And she says that children's spirituality is like a child. It does not usually neatly conform to the accepted norms or use conventional expression. At first, it might sound like babble rather than fluent Christian. It feels like it matters to the child, but is often perceived by them to not matter to anyone else. It is vulnerable. And I think the part that is really important to hear is that children's spirituality feels like it matters to the child, but it is perceived by them not to matter to anyone else. And yet, I would add to this that children's spirituality is vital for the spiritual well-being of the world and must be recognized as such. In fact, in exploring the children's language for God, for love, for purpose, for meaning, I have grown closer to God because I have been invited in to wonder and imagine beyond the boxes that sometimes our adult religion, our institutionalized religion has gotten us all trapped into. In our hospital, chaplains strive to prioritize the children and their spirituality that is vulnerable and perceived to them to not matter. And so we do this by engaging in their relationship to the divine through things called creative spiritual play. This includes interventions where we use storytelling or symbols or images to wonder with them about their values, their beliefs, their ethics, identities, and their relationship to God. We don't use those big words, but like I said, we use storytelling and symbols and images. And we use some questions coming from the godly play method to wonder. I wonder what your favorite part of the story was. I wonder what was the most important. I wonder what part of the story you would leave out and still have all the story you need. I wonder, where are you in the story? As a NICU chaplain, I end up spending way more time with newborn parents than children who can engage in this spiritual play that I'm speaking about. However, I have learned that the child's approach to spirituality is good for the adult soul. For example, I had a mom who I regularly met with as she was processing the new experience of having a baby born with several developmental delays. Some days were good days, other days were harder, and she kept wrestling with the idea that she could not question God because God wouldn't give her more than she could handle. This is probably something that you've heard because we grow up in our churches, and it's a phrase, although well-intended, becomes a normal part of the vernacular of that fluent Christian. It's a statement that was locking her into one belief and did not allow her to wonder or explore or imagine what else might be true. One day she brought up the story of the Israelites wandering through the desert. And in our adult spiritualities, how many of us have cast judgment on the Israelites for all their grumbling and complaining? She did too. And we perceive that God has judged them for their grumbling. And so I invited her into the practice of wondering, imagining outside of that trope of judgment. And she came to have empathy for the Israelites. She came to realize that God didn't judge their grumblings, but God provided food in response to them and gave them what they needed during a really hard time. In her capacity to wonder, explore, and imagine like a child, she could approach the story in a new way and create a new meaning out of the story. And through tears, she named to me that she was now able to release herself from that judgment and gave herself freedom to ask God her big question: why was this happening to me? I love this work and am grateful to the children, my patients, and my patients' families who have let me into some of the most intimate moments of their lives. It means the world to me that not only am I a chaplain, but that I get to serve as a lay chaplain alongside you in your ministries. You and me and the body of the laity are spread across our neighborhoods, our cities, and countries, and are doing the work of what our vision statement and our department is, that we are all doing the work of creating healing and inclusive communities for all people. Thanks to United Women in Faith, I know that I have felt, and I'm certain others have really felt supported in being able to live out the mission of this church and who God has called them to be as advocates for love, justice, and service. So thank you for this time to get to be with you.
Thank you, Kaitlyn, for sharing. Our next speaker is Andy Hill. Andy is a newly consecrated home missioner in the West Ohio Conference and currently serves as the online minister for Hope Collective Church in Dayton, Ohio. Committed to fostering inclusive communities, he is passionate about creating spaces where everyone feels seen and valued, regardless of background or identity. His call to ministry is deeply rooted in love, justice, and service, focusing on helping individuals discover their sacred worth and calling. Hope Collective is a fully affirming congregation, welcoming people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and walks of life. Through his online ministry, Andy reaches people who might otherwise feel disconnected, like those who are homebound or deal with social anxiety. With 1 in 5 people in the U.S. facing social anxiety and many more unable to attend church due to illness or disability, online ministry provides an important way to keep people connected to their faith and community. His ministry is dedicated to ensuring that everyone has a place to belong and experience the love and grace of God. So I will pass it over to Andy.
Thank you so much, Megan. Yeah, so I am an online minister for Hope Collective Church. And so a little bit about a Hope Collective It started in 2020 when my pastor realized that he wanted to start, and so when he made this announcement, it was funny because for me, I had just left my church home of many years, and so I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm available to help you in any way possible." But what's crazy about this is that about 3 years prior, I had heard a call from God to look into online ministry, and I wasn't sure exactly what that meant at the time. My wife, when she was bedridden with being pregnant with our children in 2007 and 2010, she had mentioned things like having the sermons available online so that she could still be a part of the church when she wasn't able to go to church. But at the time, we didn't have that kind of availability of technology to be able to do those things. And so when 2020 happened, it just all kind of clicked. So when I reached out to my pastor, I said, "Hey, I'm available." And he said, "Well, not quite yet." And so I found a home at a different church as an online minister, learned some of the ropes and other things like that. And then in 2021, when we were beginning to actually look at starting to have in-person worship, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you available now?" And I said, "Actually, yes," because I had just put my notice in at my previous church that it was time for me to move on. And so he said, "That's excellent." And so now I am the online minister at Hope Collective Church. And it's not lost on me that I left my previous church as the media minister in March of 2020, and then 2 weeks later the world shut down. But looking into online ministry, it all became clear. I got a call back. My call started in 1999 when I was in 8th grade, and and at that point, I wasn't sure exactly what my path would look like. I didn't ever feel like I was going to be a or fully ordained pastor. That didn't feel like the right path for me. I did not want to be an elder. I knew that that was not the path for me. And so when I was reading The Christian as Minister in 2022, it really clicked to me the deaconess home missioner path. And so I reached out to someone who was a deaconess in my congregation and said, "Hey, how do I get started here?" And so that's how I am now a home missioner. So talking about my ministry, the different ways that we reach the community is through different digital platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, and we also have a Facebook group. Through that, we have online worship, which is a fully pre-recorded worship. Um, every single Sunday, it is recording just like this, where you're looking at the camera. My pastor preaches to the camera, or whoever is preaching that week. We record all the music ahead, and then I edit everything together as one service that's somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. That is put out every Sunday. And then we have podcasts every Tuesday, which is just the sermon in a different format so that people can listen to the sermon every week. We do quarterly Zoom discussions through Zoom, obviously. We also do prayer posts, discussion, and other ways of engaging through our Facebook group. That is the big core of our online ministry as a way for our congregation to reach out to each other throughout the week. So we have a Facebook group that has somewhere between 200 and 250 of our members, and that is members that both attend online and in person. Our online congregation actually is some people are not even in our area. So we have some people in New York, some people in Chillicothe, which is about 2 hours away from us, people in France, Australia, who attend regularly and engage with us throughout the week. So I already mentioned some of the things that we do, but we also have members of our congregation who are part of our online engagement team. And so we have people who will post questions and different things like that in our Facebook group throughout the week. So I'm not the only one doing this. It is part of my team. And so we will have questions and different ways to engage and different ways to reach out to people. I do want to give you some statistics here about online ministry and why it is important to me. So in the US alone, there are 2 million Americans who are permanently homebound and 13 million who experience significant difficulties leaving their home regularly due to physical limitations. Also, about 12% of people suffer from social anxieties and social disorders at some point in their lives, which can make attending in-person services or anything at your church at that any sort of events at your church completely impossible for them. And so we by making online spaces, it allows us to engage in that portion of society, which can total up to 50 million Americans, and that's just Americans. Also, we did, and you're probably not going to be surprised by this, but 70% of congregations actually saw their digital reach increase during the pandemic, and that just goes to show why online ministry is so important, um, and it just allows us to reach more people outside of the church every single week, even people who may never ever step foot in your church. I also see online ministry as a way for us to provide a safe space and a welcoming space for those people who feel excluded or have been hurt by their previous church experiences, especially members of the LGBTQI plus community or those who are dealing with mental or physical health challenges. Just not those that don't necessarily feel like they can go to online or in-person worship. They can meet you where you are online every single week. Some of the things that you can do to even create a space for online ministry in your congregations or even just as yourself are you can create inspiring posts and post them online. You can do devotionals. You can create spaces for prayer requests, which is really easy. It's something that I have a pastor friend that does every single day, where she will actually go live and say, "Hey, tell me your prayer requests," and people will pop on and say, "Hey, pray for me for this." She'll pray for them right on the spot there through the chat, and then they'll go on and it's just a different way to engage with people. Another thing that you can do is host like a virtual coffee hour where you can reach out to people and just have them come and talk to you about what their problems are, or not even necessarily problems, just someone to talk to, be available to listen and talk to them and engage with them in a way that they won't necessarily have throughout the week. Something else you could do is if you're interested, you could do a Bible study through Zoom. Though those are really easy to start now through Zoom. You just start an account, get a link, set it up for every single week and say, "Hey, I want to do a Bible study on your Facebook page," and say, is anybody interested? You give them the link and you can set it up at weekly, monthly, whatever you want. And it's just a great way to create an online community where even just your friends can get together every single week, even if they're not in the same state. And then one other thing is that you can have the availability of live streaming yourself. Just if you wanted to get on and talk about what you're reading in the Bible every single day, you could do a Bible study in the sense of doing a devotional every day or once a week, or just have that availability for people to engage with you and um, see God's love being passed out into the world. I just want you all to think about different ways that you can leverage your own online presence in a way that shows love to the entire world. Our mission at Hope Collective is to develop inclusive communities where people discover sacred worth and calling. And so that's why that is so important to me. It's a place for people to be who they are, no matter what, and just know that God loves them and that we love them. And so I just want you to be able to think about different ways that you can create that kind of community in your own online presence. So I just want to thank UWF for having me on the Voices here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And our final speaker for today is Deaconess Barbara Sutton. Barbara joins us from the Northern Illinois Conference, where she serves as the fundraising chair and treasurer for the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation. In this ministry, she strives to create asthma education, awareness, and screening for youth living in underserved communities. Barbara received her Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Accounting from Roosevelt University, and her master's degree in finance from St. Xavier University. Throughout her career, Barbara developed an understanding of the practical application of finance, budgeting, investments, strategic planning, and technology within the diverse areas of the businesses where she was employed. Barbara belongs to Maple Park United Methodist Church in Chicago, Illinois, where she wears many hats. She is also a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority and former executive director of their Educational Advancement Foundation, Inc. In 2021, Barbara authored a book entitled His Grace is Sufficient. Her hobbies include candle and jewelry making. She is a proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. So I will pass it on to Barbara.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm so happy that you could join us this evening as I talk to you about a ministry that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation. I need to tell you that what drew me to Christopher D. Redding was when Helen Hammond Redding, who is the founder of the foundation along with her husband, Mike Redding, told me what she was getting ready to do. I don't think she knew that I had a son or have a son who was born asthmatic and grew up as a chronic asthmatic. So I understood what asthma could do to young children. I was fortunate enough where I had good jobs, where I could afford to get the proper health care for my son. And later on, he did not outgrow asthma, but he got the health care that caused him to not suffer as chronically from asthma as he did as a child. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Christopher D. Redding. I am a founding board member. I am the treasurer. I am the fundraising chair. I also serve on the strategic planning committee and the scholarship committee. Our story. Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation was founded in 2013 by Helen and Michael Redding Sr. in memory of their son, Christopher D. Redding, a three-sport student athlete who died of exercise-induced asthma exacerbation in 2003 at the age of 18. The Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation is a nonprofit charitable organization with the mission of educating, advocating, and providing services for youth and families that are affected by a life which includes asthmatic conditions. On this picture, you see a bench, a friendship bench that was installed at the campus in Lake Zurich of Christopher's High School in September 2023, commemorating the 20-year anniversary of the death of Christopher D. Redding. Our mission is to educate, advocate, and provide services for families and youth suffering from asthma with a focus on lessening the potentially adverse health effects on asthmatic children, youth, and young adults involved in athletics. Our vision: to level the playing field for student athletes with asthma by providing asthma screenings and treatment for youth with asthma management education to youth, families, and athletic personnel, access to asthma control devices for youth in athletics and recreational settings, recreational opportunities for youth with asthma, college scholarship opportunities for student athletes with asthma, and asthma advocacy and education in public policy and legislative settings. Our impact. Collaborating, education, asthma camps, scholarships, and advocacy. Since its official launch in May 2015, the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation has collaborated with partners such as Mobile Care Chicago to provide asthma screenings in underserved neighborhoods, educated community groups, athletic personnel, students, and families about asthma, sponsored more than 25 youth to asthma camps, provided up to $116,000 in scholarships and educational grants to outstanding student athletes with asthma, advocated for legislative changes for improved asthma management policies, such as standardized asthma management protocols, stock albuterol to assist asthma exacerbations while students are in school. Screening and treatment. These pictures show you pictures of the launch of the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation Asthma Van in May of 2023. It was an exciting time for all of us, and it was a goal that we had worked so tirelessly toward. We were able to launch this van in May of 2023 in collaboration with Mobile Care Chicago, which you'll hear more about that partnership later. In this picture are senators, a representative from the Illinois House of Representatives, some of our donors, and a few members of our board. The collaboration between Mobile Care and the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation. Mobile Care moves their van mostly throughout Cook County. Our van moves throughout Lake County and was launched, actually, it put on site at schools in October 2023. There are 21 Lake County schools, and they are located in Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion, Illinois. Screening treatments. Thus far, we have held 45 clinics. We have visited 16 school sites. We have scheduled 255 patient visits, and we have actually seen 172 patients on our asthma van. We have looked at some of our baseline data since we launched the asthma van, and some of the statistics for before and after are less than 5 school absences, before 59%, after 96%. No emergency department visits, before 57%, after 93%. No asthma hospitalizations, before 93%, after 100%. ACT score 19 or above, before 55% and after 82%. So we can actually see the impact that we are having on the community. Education. These are just some of the pictures. Mike and Helen Hammond Redding travel all over the state of Illinois and to other locations to do asthma advocacy and education. And the next few slides, just so some of the pictures of the work that they are doing. Occasionally I go out, but most of my work is done planning fundraisers, working on the finances of the foundation. We do health fairs. We partner with the community. They've come out to Maple Park United Methodist Church on multiple occasions when we've had events. to bring information and to help to educate those people in the church and in the community. Our partnership with Mobile Care Chicago.
Mobile Care Chicago has been serving children in the Chicago area for over 23 years now with mobile medical units called asthma vans. These asthma vans partner with local schools, and they'll travel around and provide comprehensive guidelines-based allergy and asthma care to children. And we know that this is an effective therapy, and that 97% of our patients last year did not go to an ER, did not go to a hospital, and did not miss any days of school for asthma. So this can really work. We've never been able to launch an asthma van in Lake County on our own, and so we're absolutely thrilled to be partnering with the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation, because together our two organizations can bring this needed service to a new area. Unfortunately, because of access barriers, we know that kids are really struggling to get to an allergist up in these different neighborhoods of Waukegan, Zion, North Chicago. So when we can park an asthma and allergy service right outside of their school, it makes it more convenient, and they can get continuous access to quality-based care. So we're absolutely thrilled to be launching this partnership.
There is no cure for asthma, but appropriate treatment and education help to prevent asthma attacks and serve to improve the quality of life and may prevent deaths. In 2020, deaths due to asthma rose for the first time in 20 years, as 4,145 people died from asthma. With the right treatment and care, nearly all of these deaths were avoidable. A health disparity exists when a health condition such as asthma affects one group of people differently than another. Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous people in the United States are disproportionately burdened by asthma. Black Americans are 1.5 times more likely to have asthma. Puerto Rican Americans are 2 times more likely to have asthma. Black Americans are 5 times more likely to visit the emergency department due to asthma. 2 times more likely to be hospitalized due to asthma. 3 times more likely to die from asthma. Social determinants, including access to health care and structural inequities, drive the disparities in asthma, while factors such as genetics and individual behaviors contribute less to asthma disparities. I would just like to say that the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation continues to allow its board of directors, volunteers, partners, and donors to utilize the talents and gifts given to them through God and Christ Jesus. This helps them to be able to accomplish abundantly, far more than we can ask or imagine, as we seek to provide knowledge, medical attention, scholarships, and support for our underserved asthmatic youth. God bless you all, and thank you for listening as we continue to strive to serve those who are suffering in the community and in the world with asthma. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Deaconess Christy Campos. I would really like to thank Barbara and Kaitlyn and Andy for sharing your very meaningful and important work and your vital ministries with us this evening. Did you know that each of you listening today are directly linked to the great work you heard about today? That's right. Through your generous mission giving, you helped provide these deaconesses and home missioner with their seminary level training classes so that they could be commissioned and consecrated to serve in their positions of love, justice, and service. Your gifts help make the administration for the DHM program possible, which Megan and Scott provide, and much, much more. Your mission giving makes all the programming we do as United Women in Faith possible. Let me say that one more time. Your mission giving makes all we do as United Women in Faith possible. That's why we started these Voices from the Field events 4 years ago, so that you could see your mission giving at work and in action through not only our DHM program, our Deaconess and Home Missioner program, but also through our many national mission institutions and our vital international work. These events give you the opportunity to put your fingers on the pulse of our collective work. So I would like to take this opportunity to first of all, thank you for your continually giving through your pledge to mission. You know, your pledge to mission is the lifeblood of all that we do. Thank you for all the ways that you give to missions through the 5 channels. Thank you, thank you, thank you. None of our work to improve the lives of women, children, and youth would happen without you. I know that I was very moved by the stories and work shared today. They were powerful. And I know that you all were moved too. So I would like to make an additional, if you would like to make an additional gift now, I would like to give you that opportunity. You could use the QR code that's on your screen. You can simply take your phone, put it in camera mode, and put it right up to your screen. And it will take you directly to the giving page so that you could give an additional gift now. Or you can use the phone number there, or the link, or even the address that is listed to mail your gift in. Thank you again for your continued and generous gifts, and for all the many, many ways that you support the important work of United Women in Faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you once again to our guests this evening, and to all of those who have joined us to hear their stories as they continue on their journey, as we all continue on our journey of faith and putting faith, hope, and love in action. I'm Jessica Tulloch, and I'm part of the Voices from the Field team and a staff person at the National Office of United Women in Faith. And I will be the moderator for our Q&A this evening. I did take note of a couple of questions in the chat as our speakers were speaking. If there are additional questions, we ask that they be typed in the chat if possible. Because of the size of the group, we're not having participants unmute to ask unless there's unless there's an accessibility consideration that we need to make. So thank you for your understanding with that, and please continue to put questions in the chat box, and I will take note of that. In addition, there will be the optional breakout rooms at the close of our program, where you can choose which room you would like to join with one of our guests this evening to continue to engage in dialogue, where you can unmute and ask your questions directly using your voice. Okay, so the questions that I noted, well, first, there had been a question earlier asking Kaitlyn about the book that they referenced, and Kaitlyn did respond to that. The book is called, this is again the book about children's spirituality, and it is called Children's Spirituality, What It Is and Why It Matters by Rebecca Nye. I also took note of a couple questions for Andy, which I will ask now. I'll lump these 2 questions together so you can respond. And they were, how are the individuals or the persons that are connecting to your congregation, how are they connecting? Sorry, how did that they didn't know about your church in the first place? How are these persons connecting to your congregation that did not know about your church? Okay, thank you. First question. And then the second question was, are any persons unchurched, I'm assuming meaning the people participating in your online ministry, and make a desire to become part of the body of Christ? So I'll let you answer that, and then I'll take note of these other questions.
So to answer the first question, we are word of mouth, just like any other church. But it's really a lot easier for us because people will share our Facebook posts, and we are on Instagram too. And I always forget about that because my pastor mainly does Instagram, but really through sharing through social media, they find us. And to answer the next question, we are chartering on October 13th, and we have at least, I believe, 3 people who came through online ministry that had not been a part of a church before. So yes, the answer to that question is yes.
Great, thank you for that. There's a question for Barbara. Does the Christopher Redding Foundation collaborate or partner with nursing schools for education and training of nursing students and also medical schools? You're still muted, Barbara.
That at this particular time, no, I don't think that we have, although we are always open to talking to various volunteers. We do have doctors for volunteers that work on our asthma van, and we do have some nurses and nurse practitioners that work on our medical van. So I can probably get more information for them in terms of things that we can talk about. If they contact me at the address that was on the slide, I'll put it in the chat if that will help. You think that'll help? Okay. I'm typing my email address in the chat.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
There was a question that is perhaps for all of you, or this may be a question for Megan, but I'll toss it first to Kaitlyn, and you can pass if you want. But the question is, how are your sites for service selected? Are they related to the United Methodist Church?
Great question. Megan, feel free to jump in if I get it wrong. But we have kind of coming into our discernment as deaconesses and home missioners, we name a place that we have connected as kind of our place for ministry. And so it's something that for most of us, we've already been working with and have identified for us that that we are called to continue in that ministry. But Megan, please feel free to expand upon that.
That was a very good answer, Kaitlyn. And I can say that deaconesses and home missioners are eligible to serve inside the church or outside the church. So it may be a United Methodist related institution. It may be a public school. It may be a hospital. So wherever we are called, we follow 4 mandates, which we summarize them by saying love, justice, and service. So whatever our ministry is, it connects to those mandates. To elaborate on what they are, it's to alleviate suffering, to eradicate causes of to eradicate causes of injustice and all that robs life of dignity and worth, facilitate the development of full human potential, and share in building global community through the church universal. So and we're very diverse. These are just 3 examples that we have today sharing about their ministries, but whatever our ministry context is, it connects back to those mandates.
Thank you, Megan. And while I have you on the board, I have another question. Actually, Megan, you might be able to answer, but feel free, Andy, Barbara, or Kaitlyn. The question is, what is the relationship between home missioners and global ministries, now in Atlanta, formerly in New York?
Well, so we're both agencies, I guess you could say. Home missioners and deaconesses are administered by United Women in Faith, which is an agency of the denomination of the United Methodist Church. The General Board of Global Ministries is also an agency of the United Methodist Church. Both of us are in ministry and in mission in the world, but we're not in relationship necessarily with each other, some people might have crossover appointments. Like, for example, you could be a deaconess and also a missionary at the same time. So missionaries fall under global ministries. Deaconess falls under United Women in Faith. So there are relationships. We're in relationship with one another, but we're not administering each other, if that makes sense.
I hope that answered the question. If not, you can just put a follow-up in the chat again, or reach out to Megan at United Women in Faith for a conversation. Okay, so here's a question for any of you or all three of you. What are the greatest challenges in your ministry settings?
This is Barbara. I'd like to answer that question.
Sure, go ahead, and feel free to add how you overcome those challenges as well.
Well, I think for Christopher D. Redding is number one, as you know, whenever you're doing ministry or any type of work, as they say, the work is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And so you find that you have a few people doing many, many things. And for Christopher D. Redding, it's a small board of directors and it's a working board of directors. That's number one. So we work hard. And then the second thing is financial resources. It costs money to do the things that we do. We send children to asthma camps. We give out scholarships every year. We run the asthma van, so it costs money to do that. So the majority of our board members work for free and spend a lot of time. I'm retired. Several of our board members are retired, and it's just almost like a full-time job sometimes. So that's a challenge. And the way that we overcome the challenge is, I know I just remember that this is my calling. This is my ministry. This is what I have promised to do. I promised to do this. And so when I took my oath as a deaconess, I said that I was going to go out and I was going to help alleviate suffering.
Sorry, Barbara, you got muted somehow.
Yeah, I was just finishing up. I said, I just remind myself of that all the time. And I think the rest of the board does too. So we just continue to work. And when you get tired, you go, you rest, and then you start all over again.
Thank you. Andy or Kaitlyn, do you want to share?
Sure. I think for me, the hardest part is again, finding bodies. I am blessed now that I have a large group of people that help with online ministry. But when I first started, that was the biggest part. I was doing everything. I was recording. So the way that our online ministry works for our online service is we have different people do different parts of the service. So like we have a person do a welcome, we have people do stories, we have people that do the benediction. And so a lot of that was me all the time doing all of it. And so now I do have a team of people that I can lean on and say, hey, can you do the welcome this week? Can you do the benediction? And so, but it's always bodies are a great part of it. Having people be a part of it is the hardest part. And so, and there are weeks where it's really hard to find someone. And so you have to just keep reaching out and keep looking for people. But yeah, that's the hardest part for me.
I don't know if this is there are lots of challenges probably, but I think one of the things that I think about in this work is honoring the autonomy of a child is a challenge in when you're working with folks who have lots of degrees and are very smart and who also it is their job to take care of this kid, and sometimes that kid doesn't want to be taken care of. They don't want another needle poked in their body and this, that, and the other. And so the child has a lot of lack of autonomy. And so I think one of the blessings in a spiritual care provider is that we can help give some autonomy back to that child and invite them into exploring how they want to. That we are not telling them anything that they have to do. All of our visits are optional, and they kind of help lead us. And so I think that that is one of the challenges of just working in a pediatric setting versus an adult setting that we try to work with.
Thank you. I have one last question for the three of you. You don't all have to answer, but whomever would feels, moved to answer. That is, how did the training provided by United Women in Faith prepare you for this current stage in your faith journey and your current ministry?
I wouldn't mind trying to answer that. I think going through the period of discernment where I had to really think about, truly, because we're doing all kinds of things. I'm working in the church and I'm over here working and I'm over there working. But I had to really stop and think, what is my ministry? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And then all of the studying, being in fellowship with all of the other, with my colleagues who are also trying to go through their period of discernment. And after a while, it becomes clear because you're focused. We were put in sort of isolated settings and we were focused, and you start to get clarity on what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you want to continue to do it. But at the same time, you've pulled the whole church, everything comes together, the dots start to get connected. Because we have a tendency, I think, to separate some of the things we do outside of the church from what we do inside the church. And it forced me to connect the dots and to pull it all together so that it was all one, because I was doing the same thing in both places.
Thank you so much for that response. We're out of time for Q&A, and there were a couple brief questions in the chat, which I would hope that Andy and Kaitlyn, they were addressed to you. You could maybe take a minute to respond via the chat or join in the breakout rooms for those who asked that question to ask in person. And I'll pass it to Megan. Thank you.
I would love another 20 minutes of Q&A, I think. But as you've been listening to our Deaconess Commissioners that have shared today, maybe you feel that you might be called to discern this relationship for yourself, or maybe you know someone who might be discerning ministry and maybe is called to the Deaconess Commissioner relationship. And so we would like to invite you or this person that you're thinking of to our upcoming discernment event. It's taking place on Zoom. It will be October 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Our events are 2 hours long, and we go over all the details of how to become a deaconess or home missioner, what that looks like, what is the education and the requirements, and also we share personal stories, and you'd get to meet some more deaconess home missioners and hear about their ministries. So we'd love for you to join us, and if you have any questions, you can email me. I'm on the other end of this email, which is deaconess@uwfaith.org, and I will send you some more information.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. We want to especially thank our guests Kaitlyn Frantz, Andy Hill, and Barbara Sutton, and the Voices Planning Team. United Women in Faith's giving is supporting programs that change the lives of women and their families. This program will be available on our YouTube channel in a few days, and we invite you to share with your United Women in Faith sisters, your church community, or your community at large. We hope you enjoy this evening's presentation.